All right, guys, this is the final example in section 7. And this problem is very, very tedious as far as the number of steps and the thought process of how you approach it. So our main goal here is to prove that triangle PTU, let me just highlight it, and forgive me, it's hard to draw straight lines on this tablet. So PTU, there we go. So we want to, our final goal is to prove that this triangle and this triangle are congruent. Okay, but we have many, many, many steps to take before we can do that. All right, so I'm going to give you a hint. So we're going to do this in chunks. I'm going to let you do it, then we're going to talk about it, then I'm going to let you do the next step. We're going to talk about it. So the first thing I want you to do on your own, and then we'll go over it, is try to prove that this triangle here is congruent to this triangle here. Okay, so do that on your own, and then we will come back and discuss that, and then why it's important to do that. All right, so all of this is just to prove the triangle in green and the triangle in blue are congruent. And I know it's a lot, and we're not even close to being where we need to be yet, but this is the first part of it. So it's given that PQ up here and TU down here are congruent, and as we'll show, these angles are right angles, which means those sides are opposite of the right angles, which means that they're actually a hypotenuse. So I put my hypotenuse here. Okay, now from here to here is what it takes to show that these angles right here and right here are truly right angles. Okay, so first I have to say that these are a linear pair. And then because they're a linear pair, I use the linear pair postulate to tell me they add up to 180. And then I substitute the 90 because it's given that the linear pair is 90 degrees. And when I do that, I could subtract from both sides to get that each of these are equal to 90. So that's how I prove that that's a hypotenuse. And then I start with this piece right here, this PR and this SU are congruent. And if I add RS to both of them, which is what I did here, I can do that because the angle addition, property of equality, I would get the whole piece. So I have to say segment addition postulate, and then I have to substitute in to get my PS is congruent to UR. And there's my leg. So by the hypotenuse leg theorem, these two triangles are congruent. Okay, so if these two triangles are congruent, I'm going to erase some of it, but not all. That means that these two, that means that RT is congruent to QS by the CPCTC. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Okay, so I'm going to erase the rest of this. Okay, now I want you to prove something else. We're still not where we want to be, but now I want you to prove that this triangle and this triangle, so the triangle in green and then the triangle in purple, I want you to prove that those two triangles are congruent. Now, this is much easier. Go back through and see what you have, and this should just be one step. All right, guys, so let's look at this. So we have, we've already stated that RT and QS are congruent. So that's one side. And then we've already shown that PR and SU are congruent. That's another side. So we have two sides, and wouldn't this here be the included angle? Okay, so if I go way back up here, where I say right here that they're both equal to 90 degrees. Okay, well, if they're both equal to 90 degrees, doesn't that mean that they are congruent? So PRT is congruent to QSU. So PRT, angle PRT is congruent to angle QSU by the definition of congruent. I've said they have the same measure, Now all I have to say is that they're congruent. So now that I've said that they're congruent, I can say that triangle PRT is congruent to triangle USQ by the side angle side congruence theorem. All right, so now I'm gonna erase parts of these, and I'm gonna leave that. Okay, so I can say that PT is congruent to QU. And that's by CPCTC of the two triangles I just did. All right, now we're in a good position to show what we need to show, that this triangle here is congruent to this triangle here. So what I want you to do is look at what you have, look at what you need, and then prove that they're congruent, and then we'll go over them. All right, guys, the only thing we need to add here is that they share side PU. So I could say that PU is congruent to PU by the reflexive property. Okay, and that's my third side. I know all three sides now. So I can say that triangle PTU is congruent to triangle, let me scroll back up here, UQP by the side congruence theorem. Okay, I know that was a lot. I hope you had enough room on your paper. Clearly I didn't on my screen. But it is doable, and all of you guys have the tools you need in your toolbox to be able to do this.